Welcome to Here Where You Belong, your go-to podcast for exploring belonging with your host and belonging expert, Dia Irby. We are thrilled to have you join us. Together, we'll dive into the depths of what it means for each of us to find our own place in the world, whether it's within our communities, our relationships, or within ourselves. Today's episode is meant to inspire, uplift, and remind you that no matter where you are or where you're headed, you have a place where you truly belong. So grab a cozy spot and settle in. Welcome to Here Where You Belong.
Hello, awesome belongers. Welcome home to Here Where You Belong podcast. I have someone amazing for you to meet today who definitely belongs on this podcast. My guest has a unique way of creating community. I'm Dia, your host. Get ready to be inspired and blessed. Let's welcome Brenda Seefeldt. Hey, Brenda.
Hi, Dia, and everyone else. Glad to meet you in this space.
Yes. Well, here's a bit more about our guest. Brenda is a pastor, author, speaker, wife, mom, and Oma. Did I say that right?
You said
Oma?
that right. Oma's German for grandma.
I figured that
Grandma.
out. She pastors Larger Story Church, a hybrid church that meets over Zoom because conversations are a part of their worship. Brenda writes at www.bravestir.com, which you need to go to, and has recently released a new Bible study with video called Trust Issues with God, which is the best of these conversations shared at her church. Brenda's also the author of I Wish I Could Carry Your Pain. It's a 28-page book about how to help someone at the bottom of a pit of pain. It also has doodles. And Brenda has an insightful article about her 2 most important days in her life. Ooh, we might need to dig into that. So, Brenda, did I leave anything out? Do you want to add anything to that?
You did great. So I'm going to just add, I'm 61 years old now. I have a life perspective here that I just wish to share with you people. And it begins from my story of not belonging and then finding Jesus at 15 and then figuring out I belonged. And it's those go together very strongly. And then I've just had this big, brave faith life ever since I was 15 years old. But now I'm 61. So it's a long life. I have many stories if we have time.
Oh, we have. So because this is about belonging, tell us how belonging has fit into this, especially maybe you're a prolific writer. I see on your page the 2 most important. You gave the perspective of someone else saying there are 2 important days, the day you're born and the day you find out why. But
Yeah.
you have a different perspective on that.
That's a Mark Twain quote, but it's also been not credited to Mark Twain because a lot of Mark Twain quotes, it's just one of those legends. And I read that once. I was like, I think my 2 days are just different. And one is the day of my salvation because shapes my entire story. It is really a death to life story. And then the second one is kind of a longer story about how I was given my sons, and that's not, and they weren't by birth. That's a whole story right there. So,
Well, let's hear it.
okay. So let me just go back briefly to my salvation experience because it gets to me why I even noticed my boys. And I'm going to really keep this one short, but I had a good Christian parents, but I had a stuttering problem that kept me really small. A lot of teasing in school and just so I was filled by self-hatred. And I say, in the good intentions of my parents trying to help their daughter not get smaller and smaller by each grade, they brought me to some Christian faith healers. This would be back in the 70s, some Christian faith healers to be healed of my stutter. And that didn't work. So that now I'm angry at God, or God hates me. And this is my thought. So by the time I'm 15, I am dark. I am dark, dark, dark. We didn't have the words for suicide ideation back then, but for sure that was me. If I had social media, I might not be alive because of the darkness that I was there. So I was going to say, my parents forced me on a retreat in my 10th grade year of school. And I had my own youth group did not like me at all. That didn't help. The mean words came from my youth group really in that last year before I got saved and after I got saved. But 3 girls from another youth group who were beautiful. And I say, I had never had beautiful people talk to me before without teasing. I had never been accepted by beautiful people. And these 3 girls just took me along with them this whole weekend. And so the Saturday night of the retreat, when they told me that Jesus loved me, I believed it. And this dam in me broke, this self-hatred and this hatred, and it broke. And I came home that Sunday afternoon. I will never forget this. I got dropped off at my parents' house, and we had a big kitchen glass window. My parents saw me get out of the car, and I looked different. And my parents started crying. Their daughter was going to live. And so this has changed me forever and ever and ever. So finished high school as one of those Jesus freaks that was just reading a Bible all the time and leading Bible studies with, with all I did, left home, and God called me into full-time ministry. So I've been a pastor my whole adult life. I mean, I was actually paid by a church by the time I was 20 years old. So I've been on church staffs my entire adult life, just in love with Jesus. So, but my sons, this story of belonging. Maybe because of me, and I was a youth pastor for 40 years. So this is my heart. Teenagers, finding those teenagers who felt like me has always been my thing. And finding those teenagers that come with hurt or extra pain or trauma, or just already are feeling small when they're 13. I'm pursuing you with the love of Jesus, so you can see there's a different way and know what I figured out. So youth pastor, long time. It's now their early 90s, and a group of boys full of trauma. We meet, they connect to me, and I'm like, these are street kids. I mean, these are street kids. And all they want to do is spend time with me after school. And they want me to come over into their neighborhood, sit with them on the drug corner, and be with them. And I'm like, Jesus, what are you doing? But I'm brave enough to follow this situation, single woman, to just find out what's going on, picking them up on Sunday mornings for church. But they don't fit in at church, because
Street
they're
urchins.
yeah, they're beautiful, but they're rough. And so here's the kind of the story. So I just love them, and they love me. And then through people, I was inviting people in to help me out. What am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. One of these young college kids of mine from my church invited them to come to college, which their parents said to me, they're in 8th grade now. You can take them because they're never going to college. And so they had this whole college weekend of living on the campus, in the dorms, going to a basketball game. This whole thing that, as an 8th grader who's not an academic, never dreams of, right?
Right.
And
No, wait, time out. Are you single, married?
Single.
Single.
I'm single. I know.
Okay.
I know. I'm trusting God big time because these boys are so curious and so attached.
Well, God brought you to them.
And I had to pay attention to that because I could have easily excused myself out of this.
Oh, I can think of a multitude of excuses.
Yes.
I'm single. I'm a woman. Why would they want to? They're not going to accept me, even though I'm trying to accept them. There's multitudes.
We laugh now because they're all in their early 40s. All they knew is they just wanted to be loved by me. Now they weren't looking for love. They just knew something was peaceful here in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
And they admit, I admit that to them too, because I knew a lot of their friends. They chose me, and they just stayed in and pursued, and no idea what was going. And this college weekend, they all got saved. And I looked at, the college student Brian. I was like, you just changed my life because now I have to disciple these guys. You know, I mean, I can't just leave them. They're just here. And so we started, you know, again, and this is all, you know, they're not fitting into the youth group. So I got to do this on the side and, you know, all kinds of things here. But this is the thing. I just, oh boy, about a year after that, this gets really blurry for me because I met my husband and the whole relationship is blurry to me because I wasn't ready to get married, but he was ready to pursue me. So I denied a lot of what was going on, you know. And he so when we decided to get married, he knew the kids knew him. And when I made this decision to actually get married, we told the boys first. And this is what I knew what I had. I was excited. I had prayed through this whole thing. I had met with my people around me. I mean, just marriage wasn't a small decision when you're a pastor. And I was 33, so I wasn't even a small decision. And the boys weren't happy for me. They pulled me aside and said, we love John and all, but we think he'll be like every other stepfather and take you away from us. And that's when I knew what I had. And there wasn't much time later, and I'm praying through this, God said, these kids don't need a pastor, they need a parent. Mm-hmm. And so John and I just kind of transitioned our approach to them, which wasn't much because I already was trying to outside the box these things, and continued. And then when they turned 18, 3 of their 4 parents said, we did our job, 18, we're done. You can have them if you want, but we're done. We're out. And so here we are. Now they're 42. And I got 6 beautiful grandchildren. And this is the beautiful thing. My grandchildren were born wanted, loved, and they know about Jesus from day one. My own sons never had that.
Did you ever officially adopt them, or? No. But I mean, it's not a matter of paper.
Not a matter of paper. No, not when their own parents
gave them up.
Gave them up, and
that is a story of belonging.
Yeah,
totally,
exactly. That is, and so that raising them has shaped my life, because it is.
Were they all like 13, all the same age?
Yeah, they're all the same age.
Teenage triplets. Yay!
Yeah, 4. Yeah, quadruplets.
Oh, quad. There's 4 of them.
4 of them. And so, you know, it hasn't. I mean, I'm gonna say now that they're in their early 40s, I think I'm done crying over them because it hasn't been easy. 2 of them ended up in prison anyway, despite everything. We weren't able to stop that trajectory that they were born into.
Right.
But we haven't left them. You know, we haven't left them. I got 1 boy getting out in the next 2 years. I cannot wait because he's been locked up since he was 18. But we've been with him he'll be a story sometime, but he's not, you know, ready for that yet. But he's now that we have a release date, he's feeling safe to reflect, because before then he had to protect himself from hope, basically.
Right.
And now that there's a date for hope, he's full of reflection, and I cannot count. Well, I'd love to. I have them all saved. The odes and email he sends me for getting him to this point. Things I knew, but now that he can say them out loud because he's not going to be disappointed in having to wait to get out, he can say it now. And most of the time with my boys, I have had to guess. We've guessed right. It's like we have guessed right, because the things that I'm hearing now, 25 years later, is what I hoped we were doing right. But I know we are. So, and again, because they're in their 40s, they're pretty much, you know, their faith is stable, their lives are stable, they're successful. They're just defying the odds. They can reflect back on this, and they're, you know, and we did things right.
You totally did. And that is a belonging story. They didn't belong, and you gave them a place to belong.
Exactly.
That is amazing. This is also good. Oh, we can talk forever. we're going to take a little break here and be back with Brenda Seefeldt in just a minute. We'll be back. Hey there! Isn't my guest amazing? So glad you joined us today. In this world that often feels disconnected, building community and fostering belonging are essential. That's why I created this podcast, to bring inspiring people to you, to encourage you to create that sense of belonging and community, no matter where you are. If you're being blessed by my guest, and we have some more, like, subscribe, and share this podcast. You know who needs to hear this. Stay connected, stay true to yourself, and always remember, you belong. Now, back to our amazing guest. And we're back with the amazing Brenda Seefeldt. Thank you so much for being here today, Brenda. On the second half of our podcast, I like to ask my guests, what do they consider their greatest accomplishment? And Brenda, I know you mentioned your boys, and that is a great accomplishment. We haven't even touched on your church.
Right.
The larger story. So that's second, maybe. Can I decide that's another? Well, let's just say another great accomplishment of yours. Tell us a little bit about the church.
Thank you. Yes, this is, I mean, like in the midst of this wonderful accomplishment, I think. 40 plus years as a youth pastor, pandemic happened. I get laid off at a church. It's even, it's still like, what? So some months happen. I'm laid off. I'm like, hey, God, what's next? I'm not young. What's next? Really, I'm really hoping and praying for this, that when the church was in this time out, that the church would grow and change, because what's happening in the church culture has been declining for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then the pandemic hit, and it just, it was like, this is the chance for the church to reboot, to be the church again, to really meet people's needs and not just be in the system of the church, which is really what has happened. So I'm kind of praying, going, God, whatever's next for me, I want it to be like that. Then some parents of my teens, I've been in the same area for 38 years. So some parents of my teens in my previous churches came to me and said, we think you should start a church. And I'm like, my first reaction is, no, I'm a youth pastor. But then I was like, ooh, I have a lot of thoughts about what a church should be doing at this time. And so I agreed, because one, parents of teens. Okay, you're hitting my soft spot right there. Parents are way more important than youth pastors in a teen's life. And these parents want to be taught by me. Oh yeah, you hit me right in the soft spot. And how can we do church differently? So we started talking about it. And because we only had Zoom really at this time, I wasn't going to live stream because I knew that was dead end, no relationship there. So we had Zoom at the time, and we talked about this, and it was like good music. And my husband is a professional musician and great worship leader. So I had easy access. Yeah, that was like, I know I can offer that without much trouble at all, and people love his worship. So I was like, good worship, so people can feel peace again. Because this is 2020. We're still in the pandemic.
Yes.
And conversations, because what these people we were meeting with as we started the church said, live streaming was no relationship. The world is changing. The pandemic happened, George Floyd happened, and they wanted to have conversations about what is going on. They wanted to have faith conversations. They wanted to know what God's saying at this time like this. They just wanted conversations. And so I was like, oh, I'm a youth pastor. I can do conversations that are difficult. So we made that a part of our worship liturgy. And then the third thing that was really interesting was, again, parents of teens wanted to meet on Friday nights, because that's a family night. Mm-hmm. And they really enjoyed having Sunday mornings being slower, not the rush of church.
Yeah.
And so, I'm just like, I'm wide open here going, God, you got to be doing something new in the church. I'm not opposed to trying this out at all. And so we started. And lo and behold, we're 4.5 years later, we have people coming from all over the United States because they can, because of Zoom. And it's people who want to have these same conversations, and they are growing. I see their souls growing before my eyes. I'm not just teaching and getting the nods in the pews and they go home on Sundays and I wonder what they're doing the rest of the week, because conversations are a part of what I'm teaching. I'll teach something, I'll throw a question out, and then they get to respond. And what that time does is, one, I'm getting intergenerational wisdom. We have old people and we have teens. And I got old people saying what they've learned. I got teens saying what they have learned. That's beautiful wisdom shared together. And I got people sharing their doubts. And I got people asking really good questions about such and such situation. And then it's not me giving the answers back. Again, here comes, we have an 11-year-old right now who is, I don't know if he's 11 and part prophet or what, but sometimes he'll speak up and say something, and it's like, that is the absolute truth for this very moment. I didn't have to say it. My church is saying it to each other. And so there is a real, I mean, we're
You're
all
a moderator almost.
yeah, we're all coming from different states. And some of these people we've never met in person yet. We've never been able to hug each other yet. But there's deep relationships here because we're talking about vulnerable faith things week after week after week. And they keep showing up because they just want to be seen and have this connection and either offer some wisdom or to take home some wisdom. And I'm going to say more often than not, I may give it the base, but it does, what they take home does not come from me. It comes from the group.
So how many people are there? I mean, I'm trying to imagine just the logistics of it.
We have about 25.
Okay. That's doable. Is it the same 25 or different 25?
We have the same 20, and I will say we have between 1 to 10 visitors a week. And some have stayed and some have, just popped in once. And it's not for them. I get it because it's not normal. I'm okay with that. We have, quite a few people will just keep their cameras off. I'm okay. That's sitting in the back row, right?
That's right.
And so it kind of becomes fun when I see a camera off person come after 4 or 5 weeks and turn their camera on. That tells me something.
It totally does. Yes. They got to a point where they felt like they belonged.
Exactly.
So you are creating a unique community.
Yes.
That
Yes.
gather with a purpose, and you can watch them grow. That's an amazing.
That's the thing.
community.
That's because I hear what they're saying back.
Right. And you could even 4 years ago, maybe somebody was there and they said something, you're like, "Nee." And now 4 years later, they say something and you're like, whoa, that person has had their eyes opened or they have learned something. Yes.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
it's recorded? Is it recorded?
No, because what's shared is so personal. I will
Right.
never.
Okay.
I won't even
Good.
market that. But what we do is after we're done with Friday Night Church, I will re-record my message, for YouTube. So it's just me in front of the camera, and I'll ask the same questions. So you can take my video recording and use it as a small group setting, because here's scripture, here's the teaching, here's where you pause, and here's where you ask questions with your own small group. So we leave that on the YouTube channel. Anybody can find it, Larger Story Church on YouTube, and take it that way. And then what I usually do I always do it after church, because I take the wisdom that I learned in church and I add it to my message so that I sound smarter. But I didn't write it down originally, but it came from people. And this is the thing. I've been a pastor my whole adult life. I'm not driving in traffic. I don't share a cubicle with anybody. I don't have these frustrations of a regular people. You get what I mean? So when they share something in their situation that's what I consider more real life than my real life, I know it matters more than my perspective, because my perspective comes from a protected pastor perspective. Now I have to deal with prison and stuff like that. I know that's not everybody either, but it's not everybody either. When people share, like we have a bunch of teachers, and they start sharing about the education system and how they're trying to find their way through, that I know is going to bless 10 other people, So I take their notes and add it to my notes.
This is all part of why I love to interview guests on Here Where You Belong, because I'm not out there adopting 4 13-year-old boys. I mean, not literally, but taking
Exactly.
in.
Exactly. You're not going through
And
that.
all that you learn from that, being available, being open, seeing opportunity, and being willing, or just, I love thinking outside the box. I say sometimes, what box?
I mean,
Let's stop thinking and say we're thinking outside the box. Just say, what box?
right. Let's do church differently because people are not coming back.
Right. And
They've got to be
obviously it's
seen.
not scratching their itch. So we need
Right.
to find a way to
Right.
scratch their itch.
Right. They're not getting their questions answered with a biblical
Exactly.
perspective. They're just living with their questions in isolation. And if you think about it, since the pandemic too, there's been a whole economy developed to keep us in isolation. DoorDash comes to our home.
Oh,
We can work from our home. AI is being sold to you now as your new friend who can answer all of your life questions.
mhm.
We're being sold this whole new economy to stay home and not be connected to people
And not belong.
and not belong.
Community. Yeah.
Exactly.
And
And
humans need to belong.
we do. There's this anxiety crisis going on as we're being sold to be isolated. Is this a coincidence? No.
Oh, I wonder what's causing that.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Next question.
Okay, here we go.
What makes you feel like you belong?
Oh,
That one's hard.
yeah. That's just when I'm seen. Um, I I will always choose a brave decision over a not brave decision. There's always risk involved. But if I'm making this brave decision and someone is saying, I'm cheering me on, I feel seen. I just need a couple people to say, "You okay? You go, girl. You try it. You try this new church. Here, we're behind you. I can go and do anything."
When you feel supported, when you feel seen
Hmm.
and not just pass by.
Hmm.
Amazing.
But
Now
I
that,
have to put myself into that
oh, yeah.
vulnerability. I mean, I have to. I got this crazy idea, parents or teens. Do you think we could try church like this? I have to do that.
Have you ever had, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. Have you ever had an opportunity where you did step out, you had this, I'm going to try this, and you shouldn't have?
Yes, of course, of course. Um, Thankfully, I think all my big decisions have worked out. Um, but I've tried some, ministry ideas, and they didn't work out.
Well,
Yeah,
good. That's, you're a person, you're normal.
yeah, yeah.
That's another reason why we have our support group, why we need to belong in a community, because you can come up with an idea and you can have some people, well, I'll sort of help you, but then you have people around you going, let me catch you when you fall, because we're not getting the same, this is a good idea vibes, right?
Right. So, like,
Yeah.
I got laid off of my last church, and there was a church that was really struggling, and they actually closed during the pandemic. But I was brought in to try to revitalize this church, and so I had rejection after rejection after rejection of ideas for the youth ministry, which would overflow to the whole church. And so I had a lot of rejection in those couple of years I was there. And so getting laid off, like I said, opened up with that was like, ew, man, I got laid off. But yet, thinking about what you just asked me, my ideas were not being received, even though that was why I was brought there. So,
Well,
um,
you can't resuscitate a dead body.
exactly, exactly.
Uh, yes, I totally relate to that a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
Been there, done that.
yeah, yeah. There's some hurt I'm working through on that one still because generally I have some good ideas and I had to doubt myself there because of that.
Right. But it was, yeah, not the right time or the place. So, my last question, I'm always curious to know what someone's favorite quote is. And you chose a quote from Dr. Brene Brown: "The brokenhearted are indeed the bravest among us. They dared to love and they dared to forgive." Ooh, expound on that and tell us why that's your favorite quote.
Well, Daring to love. You can hear that in loving teenagers for 40 plus years in a church setting. Teenagers will break your heart because they're in the process of figuring out their faith. And I get to have those years with them. I would do it another 40 years, honestly. And my own boys broke my heart. Dare to love them. They've broken my heart many times. Which means you have to dare to forgive.
Ooh, yes.
And you have to be in this constant state of forgiveness, recognizing and processing that. I'm going to stick with my the teens that grew up in my youth group who no longer love God right now. I could take that personally. I could take that I failed as a teacher to them. I failed as a discipler of them. I failed as their pastor. Or just forgive and continue to say, I'm here as a voice in your life. If you want to talk to me about your confusion, I'm still here as a voice in your life. And when you have that courage to dare to forgive, I think you're able to do that more without turning it onto yourself as self-hatred. And so, and I say one thing I'm glad about with my church right now, I have several grown teens joining me in from different states in the country because, they moved away and they're like, oh, I can't have Brenda as my pastor again. And oh, I kind of want to come back to Jesus again. I gotta say, those are some of my favorites in my church because I've been
I
able to,
love that.
because I can still be their
Yes,
pastor this way through Zoom.
sure.
Um, but so I think, and then going back to the beginning of the quote, brokenheartedness is brave because I'm willing to take the risk in a relationship that may break my heart. And again, working with teenagers, 100% of them are going to break your heart because you're just at that life stage where they're making decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to break your heart. So I've just gone in with dare to love, dare to forgive. And so when I read that Brene quote, probably like 2015, 16, so I've been in the ministry a long time by then, it was like that describes how I've lived my life as a pastor.
Wow. It is so true. You can't control how other people feel or think. You can do everything you possibly can come up with to influence, but you can't control it. What you can control is how you love them
Yeah.
anyway.
hmm Yeah, exactly. And it's to, not in an unhealthy way, but to just say, I am still here. I will hear your questions. I will hear your rage at God. I'll hear your rage at the church that hurt your feelings like this. And let's get to the other side of this. It's something I can do. And I do hope to do that for most of my grown teens because, they're not in church right now.
Right. Well, and they feel like they're coming to a place that's not church because it's not on Sunday morning. So there's a lot of freedom there too.
Right. There,
Ah,
that is, I say the other group of people, we have three groups of people, my grown teens. We have people who have church hurt, who can't go on Sunday mornings. It's just too much to even walk through a church door, but they miss the concept of church. So we collect them. And the other one is people who serve their church Sunday mornings, but are not fed at their church. So they
mm-hmm.
come in. Those are my wisdom givers, and they're just really awesome people. That they have a chance to learn and to feed into my people. But on Sunday mornings, they're free to serve in the nursery, and their pastors
Right,
teaching mucky muck they don't agree with, but they don't want to give up their ministry to their children. You know, so they have a place
right.
where they get good biblical teaching, and they can still serve. So we get those three kind of people meeting on Friday nights. So
Excellent.
yeah,
Excellent. Wow. We need to, yes, invite people, all you listeners out there. Explore this. This is something to
please,
discover.
please, yes,
We
please.
are, we're at the end of our time, but before we close, Brenda, do you have any final words that you have for our listeners?
I'm just gonna say, I mean, I'm here as a guest because I want you belongers who don't belong in their own church to maybe have a chance to find a place where you will grow in your faith. And so we protect our Zoom link quite well because we've had some Zoom bombers come in that want to disrupt our meetings. And so we just go to our website, largeststorychurch.com. You'll have to submit an email form because we just don't have that listed publicly. But trust us with your email. You will only get a Tuesday email from us. So I just ask you to trust us with the email and come keep your camera off if you like. You will not be the only one with your camera off, I promise. And just see if you can try to give church a chance again. And uh, um, a chance for you to actually ask your questions or get some of your doubts, and you will be seen and you will be heard. I promise. It seems like in Zoom in your house, when the economy of aloneness that Zoom has created, but we also want to say we have learned how to bypass the Zoom sound so that our music comes through to you in stereo. And if you could just come for the 10 minutes of music or 15 minutes, depending on my husband, where we have bypassed the Zoom sound, so it actually feels like it's coming into your headphones in stereo, or it is coming in. It's a much better sound, so you feel like you're in the room with us. We've done a lot of work to create. If you came to our building, it doesn't look like any church building you've ever seen. It looks like a TV studio, because we just have to have the best cameras so that you in Zoom feel like you're in the room with us. We put a lot of work into this to lessen that barrier so that you can be in Indiana and still find a place that you feel belonging to.
I love that. Thank you. Well, to our amazing guests, thank you, Brenda Seefeldt. And to our listeners, belongers, stay connected, stay true to yourself, and always remember you belong. This is Dia Irby with Here Where You Belong, signing off. Bye now.
Thanks for tuning in to Here Where You Belong. We hope today's episode has inspired you to embrace the beauty of belonging in your own life. Remember, no matter where you are or where you're headed, you have a place where you truly belong. Join us again next time for more insightful conversations and heartwarming stories. Until then, stay connected, stay true to yourself, and always remember that you belong.